Fisher, and we are here at the National Menu Show in the beautiful Atlanta, Georgia at the Cobb Galleria Center. And I am here with Caroline Turco, the assistant curator for the Money Museum, and she is going to give us a sneak peek at the Silk Road exhibit that's going to be opening up in May. We are very excited to be bringing the Silk Road to our Colorado Springs headquarters, and it's going to be the story of globalization, because trade was always happening amongst groups that could see each other or connect with each other. But it wasn't until around 100 BC when all of Eurasia was able to connect and find things about each other that they could learn from and buy, obviously. And to buy things, you need money. So the Silk Road, first of all, not a road. That's an important aspect. It is actually a term invented by a 19th century historian, but the concept is a network of trade. And it didn't happen like that. It's not a highway, but instead it was an evolution. It really starts with Alexander the Great as he conquers Persia, and then he goes on and he keeps moving up into northern India. And he brings with him all of his men, he brings with him his culture, his language, his religion, and he brings his currency, which really made an impact. I mean, they literally established new mints along the way, which is so cool. And they were making sure that people understood who they were and making sure that they understood how important they were. After Alexander the Great died at a very young age, his empire collapsed and you end up with the Romans. And the Romans start doing the same thing. They are taking their culture as far as they can. They are pushing and taking land along the way, and they are bringing with them their likes, their dislikes, their religion, their language, and their currency once more. So the Silk Road is going to be that tale of globalization, because it's not just our Western European mindset. You have the Central Eurasian kingdoms that are also coming alive at this time. You have Parthia, you have the Sasanians, you've got the little-known Kushan, which, fun fact, ancient civilization literally found because of their money. People kept finding it, didn't know what was going on. It was this mixture of Hindu / Roman / some sort of Buddhist influence. It was really interesting, and they couldn't figure out why it was there. And it turns out it was an entire civilization that was so important for this 300 period between like 0 AD, I don't think that's a thing, and 300 AD. They were this very important empire that facilitated trade, because they were really the best link to China. 100 BC-ish, China really starts moving forward and looking for new allies, and they discover, well, the rest of us. And that is fantastic, because that means that we could have goods and ideas traveling the entire distance, all the way from Britain, because the Romans had taken that at this point, all the way to the end of China. And that creates a world where new farming techniques come into play. New, very exciting things like silk are discovered. Porcelain travels. And China had all of these amazing rarities that people wanted to see. And because of currency, people were able to buy them. And so the idea is globalization really began for the world starting around 100 BC. And we at the Money Museum are really excited to teach you about the cultures that lived along these areas, the people that thrived, and also what they were using to facilitate these trades. And it's beautiful pieces of art that they were thinking of as currency, and also propaganda. Each of these coins tells a story, and it's really cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Is there a particular story from any of these coins that you would like to share with us?
Well, I think starting with the Chinese is always interesting because it's so different. The Chinese actually didn't make coinage in the way that we think of it, but they started off with little representations of their most important possessions, which were tools. Steel, very hard to make at this time, very expensive, and the average farmer needed a spade and a knife. And so they had spade and knife money, and they are shaped like it. Fortunately, the knife has like a lovely little hole, because they would string them together in groups of 100 or 1,000. They didn't use gold and silver like the rest of the Central Eurasian cultures. Instead, they were using bronze, and it was very symbolic. It was representative of owing someone, but it didn't have its weight in gold as like its value. And so the Chinese money is really interesting in that it really didn't travel out of China. China, in terms of money going out, was silk and porcelain. The money was internal, it was for their bureaucratic government, it didn't have pictures. It was very interesting how the cultures just progressed so differently, but they still needed the same concept. We need something to like say that you have chickens and I have goats, but we can still communicate and we can still trade. And that's what the currency was for them. But then when you get to places like, well, the Arabian Peninsula is super interesting because it started with the Parthians, which were a very similar community to the Romans at the time. They were often battling heads over some of those really special niche areas where people were going back and forth between what we think of as Europe and what we think of as Asia. But they were in that area, they were a warrior group. The Romans constantly locked horns with them. But then when they subsided, we get the Sasanians, and here they come. It's a very interesting, similar group in some ways, but they're Persian, so they have a very different concept of who they are. They have a different religion. And then eventually you get Muslim influence, you get Islam as it spreads all throughout that area, and their coinage changes completely. So while you have these earlier cultures that look a lot like the Romans, by the time of Islam, pictures are off of coins, obviously, that's a no-go, and they are using legends to tell things about themselves and about their culture and about their religion. So I really like the contrast of the Chinese and the Islamic currencies that are perhaps less decorative, but they speak volumes about the culture that they came from.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for giving us an exclusive sneak peek. Be sure to tune in sometime in May. We'll be releasing exact dates and openings and everything. But yeah, we're here at the National Money Show in beautiful Atlanta. Thank you so much.